All right.
All right. All right.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to today's Pleasant Hill, Missouri mayoral debate. I'm Rick Kinsler, morning DJ with FM 92.1, resident of Pleasant Hill. I'm honored to be serving as moderator for today's debate. Before we begin with questions, it's helpful for residents to understand the structure of the city government they're voting to lead. And Pleasant Hill operates as a special charter city under Missouri law. Charter functions much like a local constitution, establishes how the city government is organized, how authority is shared between elected officials and staff, and how decisions are carried out. Under Pleasant Hill's charter, the city is governed by a mayor and 4-member city council, supported by a full-time city administrator who oversees the day-to-day operations of the city government. Council members serve staggered 2-year terms so that experience and continuity remain on the council from election to election, and representation structured both geographically and citywide. 3 council members represent the city's precincts, with 1 council member serving at large and representing the entire community. The mayor presides over the meetings, helps guide policy discussion, and represents the city publicly, while the council works together to set policy, approve budgets, and make decisions affecting Pleasant Hill's future. Understanding this structure is important because the mayor must work closely with both the council and the city administrator to move priorities forward and ensure the city government operates effectively and transparently. With that context in mind, we begin today's discussion about leadership policy and the future of Pleasant Hill. And the questions being asked today were submitted by the community of Pleasant Hill and reviewed by a committee. And we do want to say thank you to PH MoMag, City of Pleasant Hill, the citizens of Pleasant Hill, and mayoral candidates. So today the mayoral candidates will debate the issues for the April 7th election. We'll begin with each candidate having 60 seconds to give a short introduction, beginning with the current mayor, John King.
Hi, I'm John King. Moved to Pleasant Hill in the year 2000. I have been in government since I left my parents' house for boot camp in 1987. So for 39 years, I've worked in government between the military, the last 34 years in the fire service. I was elected to council in 2016 and became mayor in 2020.
All right. And we'll next go to Robert Gear.
Good afternoon. My name's Robert Gear, and I'm actually moved to Pleasant Hill in 2019. And so some background on me. I've been in business, I'd say pretty much all my life. But when I say business, I have a love affair with cars, right? And so a lot of that automotive background that's kind of played into me with the Gearhead name, no pun intended on a play of my last name, has kind of driven me through a lot of automotive technology related businesses, currently on business number 5. But probably the biggest thing that I do for a living right now is what I call investments, and that investment terminology is essentially going out and looking for growth opportunities, right, and how we can, best make a company perform. I feel like a lot of those same things translate when it comes to something, like a city, where we can find growth opportunities to just make us better as a community.
All right, next we'll go to B. Sherles Howe.
Yes. Me and my family moved here in 1969, and we came down here to get away from the evilness of Kansas City, and it actually saved our lives. I worked for the city in 73 to 78. I was assistant city clerk, and this was 2 hours after school every day and half a day Saturday, and I did that for 5 years. My mentors down there were Ruth Redford and Jim Bell and Sandy Beatty. So they taught me everything about the city clerk part anyway. I never knew much about the mayor part, so that's about it.
All right. And lastly, we go to Don Donovan.
Hi. So I've been living here in Pleasant Hill since 2004. Brought my first child with us and had our second child while we were living here. I'm active in the community. A lot of people may know me from Soccer Association, the Theatrical Guild, doing different community events downtown. with downtown Pleasant Hill. We done the barbecue contest, I'm looking forward. I was on city council in the past as well, and I care a lot about the city, and I want to see us move forward. There's a reason why we've all moved here. We love the feel of this community, and we want to make sure that it stays that way into the future.
Very good.
Okay, I just want to interrupt just for 1 minute. You guys need to get close to your mics. It's a 2-inch rule. They can't hear John or B.
Okay. All righty. So we're going to start out with governance, transparency, and decision making. And the first question is, do you support an independent audit or performance review of city operations? Why or why not? And we'll start with Robert.
Man, that's a tough question, because I know there's a lot of debate about that right now. But if I'm being 100% honest, I do not. Whether it be us poking holes or finding things in some processes that we could change, I think the stance that a lot of us probably need to have is yes, we'll find those things along the way, or whoever becomes mayor, or if it's still John, is going to identify some of the opportunities where maybe a handful of things have lacked. But in all reality, the mission should be pushing forward, right? Like, we got a lot of other things that we could spend money on right now, and I know that's one thing that's actually going to be a significant cost to the city. And in all reality, as an individual versus spending the city's money and going out and finding some of those things, make a sunshine request if you really want to, and evaluate those documents yourself, and maybe identify some of those opportunities to bring them back to the city. But me personally, I'm spending my money on the things that the people in our community want to see that money spent on, right? Whether that be something as small as a community center, as large as that project, and making sure that we're pushing the growth of this city forward.
Same question. Do you support an independent audit or performance review of city operations? Why or why not? Let's go back to you, Don.
Okay, I do support the audit, and I think that it is something that we need just to move forward. I think it's a situation where, every year the city pays for a financial audit, and it is just that. It's a financial audit. It's auditing the finances. But there's a lot of other policies and things that go on at City Hall that an audit from the state is going to look at. And the reason why that's important is because John King's been in on city council and mayor for 10 years. There hasn't been a lot of turnover like that with the councils and things as well. So it would be a good chance to make sure that everything is happening the way it should be. I'm not saying that there's anything that anybody's done that's been bad, but at least what we can do is we can make sure that we're doing the right things going forward, and that we have a clean slate. And if there's anything they find, we can get it fixed and be good.
All right, same question to you, John. Do you support an independent audit or performance review of the city operations? Why or why not?
It's not a matter of support or not support. The annual audit we get is so much more than just coming in and looking at the books. The biggest part of an audit every year that the independent one comes in is they really look at policies. Who has access to money? What are the policies for signing checks? Who can sign checks? Who can spend money? They're looking at where money goes. They point out, hey, this vendor had X amount of checks, and it's looking for material deficiencies is what our annual audit does. And they bring back recommended practices, which we've always had really good grades on. And state auditor, they come in. I'm not against it, because at the end of the day, I'm not concerned about what they would find. Absolutely, they will probably find ways that we could do better practices. My biggest concern with it is A, cost. B is that is a lot of time city staff is going to have to dedicate to that audit coming in, that they could be working on other projects and other things.
All right, and then we'll go to B. Do you support an independent audit or performance review of the city operations? Why or why not?
I'm with John. They're already getting that done anyway, aren't they? Doesn't the city or
Yep.
the state come in and do all that?
It's not a state. It's a company that comes
Coming
in
in,
does an
and we
audit.
pay for it.
Yes.
The city pays for it.
Yep.
So why would we extend our money out farther? Why would we extend our money out farther if there's already been doing that? If it's already been taken care of. So I'm with him.
The audit is going to look at things way far deeper and different than what that financial audit is. The policies that audit looks at, John, is again, like how you said, how the money is handled, and it's the bookkeeping policies, which is completely different than whether or not we put something out for bid and we're actually getting three different bids and actually opening it up in an open setting instead, because right now there's things like that it's gonna take a look at that are far different than what the auditors did, even when I was on city council with you.
Okay, John, you want to rebut?
Yeah, I just want to rebut. So, after having conversations with the auditor's office, the first thing they're going to do, you get the signatures, it'll go through it. The auditor's office is going to pull in the previous year's audits, and they're going to look at what their findings were. They're going to look at our policies, and then they make a determination if they want to come in and do that audit or go with the audit we have. They don't do forensic accounting unless they find reason to do those things. And so, honestly, at the end of the day, I mean, this can go on and they can look at those audits and be okay with what we have. They can decide to come in, but it's, unless they assign an investigator for something, there's really not a criminal aspect to it until they determine there is that.
Yeah, I think the
So,
only.
I mean,
Yeah, they gotta be
It's-
knows.
But it's not going to be. It's not a criminal. I mean, and hope.
I say
hope to God, hope to
forensic.
God they don't find anything
No,
criminal.
Right.
but
I mean,
forensic. I meant forensic, but
Yeah.
that's not what that is unless they have to go to that level. And I'll be honest with you, even if they bring it in, I believe that they will look at the audits we have, and I'm not sure that they would come in anyway, based
Well,
on that.
I can guarantee you that the auditor, the state has vetted the different things that the people have brought to them, and it is a situation where they wouldn't have even have given them the option to be able to file or get the signatures and file it if it wasn't something where they already thought that.
So if we
Anybody
want to
can
do
file
that.
the petition. Anybody can
Yeah.
file it.
I was gonna say,
Anybody can file it. There's many every year that they don't do.
I mean, if we honed in on one thing, right, and you had referenced like bids, right? And so let's think of like our sewer bids when we send out underwriters, for example, and those underwriters, charge a percentage margin fee. That's normally where, if there's any form of government corruption, to be a process like that. So we can go out and we can send them, whether they're negotiated or competitive bids, we can figure out which one works for us. But out of curiosity, and obviously I've probably done a lot of those audit processes myself, because again, you can request a lot of documents. Even if you jumped in there and you found something, and this is probably a question for you, Dawn, like how do you get blood out of a turnip? Like if you figure out that somebody did something wrong and maybe it was a $5,000 error, right? And we had a way of charging them back. Like what's the city going to recoup versus what we're going to spend? Yeah, we might learn something, but how's it going to benefit the city after we do learn it with a new administration? Let's say you as mayor.
Well, one, we're going to know that we're going to be able to put in safeguards for in the future, so that way things like that wouldn't happen again. That would be the whole key, is so that way we can make sure that our policies and procedures are locked, and we can stop some of this stuff from happening in the future. That would be the reason why.
I mean, instead of fighting for spending our money, I feel like, I do wholeheartedly agree with you. Like, we should be finding a way to just make the process better starting now. And if that's with you, or that's with me, or that's again with John or B, like that's what probably we should be doing it for alignment purposes, is just figuring out how we move forward.
Well, I mean, let's be honest though. The city gets sued and gets put into legal battles all the time. And that money, if it's not budgeted for, it's a problem. But that stuff still happens.
We don't have
every
insurance?
time.
We don't have insurance to cover the city?
You have insurance, but not every a lawsuit, there will be an insurance part of it, but
Yeah.
there's many lawsuits that, without getting into the legal parts of
Right.
it, that, I'll just say, even our insurance companies have, limits to where they won't
Right.
fight in it, some they're like, this will be a settlement.
Right.
But I mean, there is legal stuff going on all the time, and
I
from
just want-
our end out and out in. I mean,
Right.
every little thing.
So we have
Crazy.
lawyers in our,
We have a contract with a municipal law company
Okay.
that does all the different various aspects of law, whether it's
Good.
real estate or
ordinance.
contracts laws or ordinance, that kind of thing.
Okay. So let's move on to the next question. And B, we'll go with you to start out this one. Most of all, if not all candidates, talk about transparency in government. How does transparency play out in your role if elected? What steps do you think the council and mayor should take it's transparency?
If transparency is, if that's what they want, then maybe they ought to show up at a council meeting and learn, just like everybody else. And as far as transparency, I can be as honest and open as I can possibly be, but until I know what I'm going to be transparent with, what am I doing? I mean, really, that's my answer to that. So,
John, same question. Talking about transparency, how does that play out in your role if reelected, and what steps do you think the council and mayor should take?
The city, we have been very slow to get to online meetings, whether recorded, streaming, so that people at home, people that work nights, have access to government. We've already started taking steps to improve the website. I think that's another big aspect of it, so people know where to get information. And the last part of transparency is answer questions when they're asked. When people want things, you bring it forward. They may not like the answer, but that's it. Sometimes things are just what they are.
All right, same question we'll go to Robert. How does transparency play out in your role if elected, and what do you think what steps should the council and mayor take?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that people kind of honed in on was like this second reading, proposal. I think probably the biggest thing with me being a technology guy is going to be, I don't know, taking some of those council minutes and finding a way to do some things that, guys like Tyler Young probably chatted about last time too, with like AI transparency tools, right? Like give somebody a quick hit summary of what happened at a council meeting, right? And a chance to review it. There's also, a handful of things where, as a mayor, you could go in and you could have your, mayoral minutes, right? And just time to visit with people. Right. And I know he does his city address and a lot of things, are discussed there, but that's once a year, right? We could do something like that maybe every single month. On other topics, there's transparency around, with some of these things that we financially, as he referenced, collecting bids on or things of that nature. And maybe that's time where as we're collecting those bids or as we've gotten them and before we present them to council, we go in and we let somebody, within the community, or we publicize those of, does anybody have any rebuttals, anything you've heard about one specific company that we may or may not hire through this bid process. I mean, we trusted one administration to get us in debt, right? And we voted to put ourselves in debt. And now we need to figure out how to get ourselves out. But were we transparent, with the voters when we were doing a lot of those propositions and honing in on the fact saying of, well, man, that $3 million that we're borrowing right now is going to cost us another $3 million after we pay it back. So was it worth spending $6 million right now? So.
And Don, same question. How does transparency play out in your role if elected, and what steps do you think the council and mayor should take?
So, for me, what it would entail us having open discussions about the budget, and now I know that there's work sessions and stuff that they have, and those are all in open meetings, but there's a lot of things that happen after the budget's passed there's a lot of budget amendments. There's a lot of changes in the budget. Things happen. Stuff breaks down. We have to buy more stuff. But a lot of what I've seen over the past year of going to council meetings is that a lot of these budget amendments are on the consent agenda, and I think the people need to be able to have a conversation about what those things are being, what's being charged, why it's being changed, why the budget is being changed. And so one thing that I would do is not have any of those budget amendments on the consent agenda. And so that way there would be that ability for people to address any questions that they have about why those things are happening.
All right, John, we're going to go to you with the next question. What formal checks and balances should exist between the mayor, council, and the city administrator, and how will you uphold them?
Checks and balances for what? Like, for what? I'm asking for what? What are we, checks and balances with budget, with, what, what's the?
Yeah, it's kind of a big
Yeah.
question there.
The people that asked didn't specify, but yeah, let's, since we're on that topic and kind of hinted to it before, let's talk about checks and balances with the budget.
Okay.
Since we were.
So I'll just start with like budget preparation. So city staff comes in and they have their budget. Each department comes in, they have their base budget. They give that to like the city administrator and to finance. One of the things they do, which I really like, is directors have to come in and kind of like the old Shark Tank, they have to come in and pitch those ideas to the senior staff as far as what things need to be on a budget. And, do they think these street overlays and these curb projects and buying this equipment versus waiting a year? City staff compiles a budget, and then we start our work sessions. And then it really becomes, from the council side, is having those work sessions, looking at it, where could we save money, do we need this piece of equipment, and having those conversations. And, at the end of the day, it's getting to that balanced budget. And as an elected official, you're answerable to the people in the community that you represent. And it's making sure that money's being spent wisely and being good stewards of taxpayers' money.
All right, same question to you, Robert. What formal checks and balances should exist between the mayor, council, and city administrator? How you uphold them? And we're staying on the topic of budget. That seems to be a concern of the.
Yeah, no, there's
had the question.
There's a good catch-all. I mean, budget's probably a good one, to lean in on. Biggest thing that John probably touches on is making sure that we're being smart with our money. I feel like it's city council's job, is again, we're not all, when I say collective, we're all of different opinions. So I feel like respectfully, everybody's job on city council should be, responsible for, again, respectfully challenging the status quo. Like, are we doing the right thing? Are we spending money in the right places? And if somebody else has an opinion that they believe is strong, and maybe it's John's, for example, is there somebody else that's intelligent enough or aware enough on city council to be able to step up and say, hey, you know what? When we were going to school back in my day, we had to balance a check register. I know everybody here did, and I'm still doing that thing. I'm still of that generation, but making sure that you're going to have, somebody that's intelligent with finances making those decisions. But we need to probably challenge each other, and then we need to rely on our city staff to challenge council, right? And even the people to probably spot check some of our work. But again, a lot of that's publicized in city minutes at council meetings.
All right, Don, we'll take that question to you. What formal checks and balances should exist between the mayor, council, and city administrator? How you uphold them? And again, we're staying in the topic of budget.
Okay, so for me, the city council is the one that is going to. They're the ones that are going to say this is what our budget's going to be. They have the final say. They're the ones that approve that budget. Now, the city staff is the people that are going to do all the work to make sure that they can get, you know, the services that the people need and want, and they're going to come up with the numbers, and then but the city council is the one that is going to say, we approve this budget. And the reason why the city council is the one that has to do that is because they're the ones elected by the people. Now, for me, the mayor's job in that is to make sure that everybody has what they need, because the city staff are going to need information and ideas and stuff from council, and the council's going to need the numbers from city staff, and so the mayor's job for me is to be that liaison between the two and make sure that everybody stays on task and has the information that they need in order to pass that budget.
All right, B, and we'll take that question to you. What formal checks and balances should exist between the mayor, council, and the city administrator? How will you uphold them in regard to budget and finances?
Well, at first, I'd like to know where we're at the budget. Where are we? Are we under budget, or do we have surplus? That's where I want to start at. And then we'll figure out from there where the money needs to go. That's all I can tell you on that one.
Okay. So now we're going to move on to this question. How do you determine the best course of action when the precincts have conflicting priorities? As mayor, how do you help facilitate or resolve the issue when the precincts have that conflicting priorities? And we'll start out with you, Don.
That's probably the most difficult thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because again, you're at that point, you're definitely not going to be able to, appease everybody. At the end of the day, again, the mayor is not the one that's actually deciding what the policies are going to be. That's the city council's job. The mayor's only going to decide that in the case of a tie, which happens every now and then. But as the mayor, I think you can be a good negotiator, and I think the best laid plans are not plans that one side is going to get everything that they want, or the other side gets everything that they want. It's a give and take, and it's compromise, and I think that as mayor, that is what's going to be required, is to kind of be that go-between, just like go-between between city administrator and city council. It would be the same thing in that situation as well.
All right, let's move on around B. Same question. How do you determine the best course of action when the precincts have conflicting priorities? How will you help that with mayor?
Well, I've learned a long time ago, you separate the problem. If there's somebody butting heads, let's get them to opposite corners, and then somebody go over and talk to that one, somebody go over and talk to that one. And if they can't compromise from then, take them to dinner and buy them a beer. Just tell them, you guys got to work this out. That's all there is to it. I'm kind of blunt that way.
All right, and Robert?
Now, what B said was kind of like spot on. Just brings you back to like being in high school and you're like going down to elementary school and you're settling your problems out with a fight. Like whoever wins gets it. But in all reality, it should be simpler than that. I would say fund what works. It's not necessarily one neighborhood that brings in X amount of dollars in tax revenue, right? That's okay, cool. Let's go ahead and pave that guy's road first. And I'm happy the city paved the road leading to my house. I'm 100% on board with it. They've been doing a lot of paving around town for the last 7 years that I've lived here. And it's not necessarily like the squeakier wheel gets the grease. We have a lot of people that navigate city politics, council meetings, or tend to raise problems. I would probably invest in a precinct, or I would be more inclined to invest in a specific precinct based on how the people that live in that precinct take care of what they have. And I think you could probably look at that for a lot of people that are running for mayor, city council, or anything else. Drive by and take a look at their house, right? they're going to take care of the city the same way that they take care of their home, with pride, right? And if one precinct does a better job of it, and that's the precinct that needs something, gosh darn it, go out and give it to them. But if somebody wants a sidewalk put in front of their house, for example, and again, that's just kind of a random reference, but if the house looks nice, I'm more inclined to go out there and feed you a new sidewalk. So
All right.
it's me
last
trying to
you-
simplify it. I apologize.
That's fine. Last to you, John. How do you determine the best course of action when the precincts have conflicting priorities?
The precincts have conflicting priorities every day. Whether it is legacy families here in town versus people that have lived here for 5 years, or it's 7 highway corridor businesses versus the historic district businesses, or it's north side of town versus the old part of town. These are things we deal with every day, and a lot of it is just having real conversations with people and getting them to understand that everybody, no matter where you're at, is a taxpayer or a business owner, and everybody's got an equal say to it. But you also have to get people to come in and have a voice. Real quick, we had one of those. We had went to a town hall with Councilwoman Newberry for her precinct 22, and they ask, well, how come Whispering Ridge or this neighborhood gets street overlays, and how come this? And it's like, because they put in work orders in force, and they're very organized in getting those things done. And it's getting people to understand that Facebook doesn't solve it. They need to put in work orders, and they need to be vocal and make sure that staff knows that their neighborhoods need this or that, and that's a lot of it.
All right. So we're going to move on now to preparing for revenue decline. This was another concern of the community. And we'll start off with you, Robert, with potential reductions in property taxes, possible elimination of state income tax, and the discussion of removing sales tax on food, all of which could significantly impact municipal revenue. How should Pleasant Hill prepare for a period of possible declining revenues?
Man, that's probably going to be one of the toughest questions we're going to get all day.
I know.
At the same time, I feel like some of the best leaders are going to get that one right. And in all reality, the one you just touched on with the site pads and a lot of things that we've done within the comprehensive plan and Price Chopper moving in and some of those 4 or 5, whatever they're going to be for sites, how much revenue are they going to generate? You're correct. Are we going to retain some of that slice of the extra tax that's going to be implemented for that one specific Price Chopper when you can't tax food? Is that a good investment? And me, I guess, as a business person or an investor, probably you need to find a way, I guess, to market yourself, right? For example, when somebody goes into business with another party, you figure out who you're going into business with. Is our city attractive enough? Are we doing a good job at marketing ourselves to a lot of other companies that would want to come in and actually build something here? And is it going to be sustainable, right? And so I know that right now, neighborhoods maybe are one of those things that other people, may say do not need to go first, or don't need to be put first when it comes to infrastructure or other things. But at least Summit grew when they didn't have an astronomical amount of stuff around, and they just kept building up population. Eventually, you have so many people that spend so much money a year that entices a business to want to come and visit you, right? And so, along the same lines of just making sure you can grow your population, growing your economic base is, I guess, a way that John would probably word it. We have to make sure we're doing a really good job at marketing ourselves, to potential investors. And at the same time, one other thing that we could do is instead of selling off plots of land that we have around the city, maybe reinvest in ourselves. We take out municipal bonds for a million other things. Why not take one out to go out and buy up land, turn around and build on or create, again, shovel-ready lots and get some of those things to a point where, maybe we have to lease something to a business, right, or do a lease-to-own type mentality and, go out and reinvest in ourselves. Find new ways to create revenue.
John, we'll take that question to you with those potential reductions in property taxes, possible elimination of state income tax, discussion of removing sales tax on food, all of which could significantly impact municipal revenue. How should Pleasant Hill prepare for that period of declining revenues, possible declining revenues?
Even this has been a moving goalpost rapidly. They Senate Bill 3, when it passed, it'll go to the voters. Voters will freeze real estate tax, true property tax. that's gonna, like you said, it's gonna be a decline. I guess it's good news, bad news. The vehicle personal property tax will also be a freeze. It won't be an elimination, so that doesn't hurt quite as bad. Income tax really for us comes down to what government programs are going to be available to us. But all of these things, we're just moving from a valuation taxing process to a purchasing capital. So as he said, it becomes sales tax, and it's really getting businesses in here from different scopes so that we don't ever get all our eggs in one basket, not all food. We have services. Some of it is getting with our state legislators to change the Hancock Amendment so we're not rolling back some of our taxes that we're currently have to do to keep, which was done to keep cities and special districts from getting windfalls. Well, now we're going to get into deficit. We don't have windfalls. Those are a lot of them, and it's a multifaceted. There's no one answer here. And it's going to be a couple of lean years, and the thing is we can't stop. We can't just stop what we're currently doing, or we're going to find ourselves where we were 5 years ago. We've got to keep growing. We've got to keep pushing forward, or we're just going to lose all the the progression we've had in the last 5 years.
All right, Bean, we'll take that question to you. With the reductions in the taxes, property taxes, possible elimination of state income tax, moving the sales tax on food, all of which could significantly impact municipal revenue, how should Pleasant Hill prepare for that period of possible declining revenues?
Well, for one, Dr. Patterson brought this up to me the other day. He says everybody is buying from Amazon. So they're cutting out the little people down here. If we want to save our city, we need to bring that money down here to these little shops and keep our money in this city. Now, if that all goes through, the tax is going to be wiped out, all of them? Or it's just talk?
No, just reductions.
Just
They're
reductions. Okay. So who's bringing that up?
That's all state legislation.
State
It'll be on your ballot in April.
Okay.
So
Well,
some of
there we
it
go.
will be. Some in November.
Okay. Well, that's the only thing I could think of is just stop buying from Amazon and start looking around the city and finding what you need here. And I'd sure like to get something done for them young kids. If they take that price chopper and they empty it, I hope they don't tear it down. I would like to get investors in there and put up a movie theater or a bowling alley so these kids have something to do.
Oh, they will sell it.
They're gonna sell it.
They will sell it with a business in it. They've got a plan.
Oh, they've already got it fixed?
Yep.
That was the only thing I had. Shoot. Because I've been saying that since I was a teenager. There was nothing for us to do. We'd rode around wasting gas and getting in trouble because that's all there was to do. Yeah, done with that.
Don, with the possible reductions in property taxes, elimination of state income tax, discussion of removing sales tax on food, all which could significantly impact municipal revenue, how should Pleasant Hill prepare for a period of possible declining revenues?
So we need more retail. Retail is what's going to bring sales tax.
Yep.
Service industry is not going to bring any sales tax in. So we need more retail. Downtown has got a lot of vacant buildings. We need retail businesses in these vacant buildings.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. People need to stop buying stuff off of Amazon and buying it more
You got a
local.
package at your house right now.
But I guarantee you that whatever's in that package that my wife bought was not something that we could buy from downtown yet.
Okay.
But that's what we need. We need businesses like that down here so that way people can buy this stuff local.
Yeah.
And because that is what's going to help take care of that gap if for some reason we do not have the tax on food any longer.
So just with that, just so everybody knows, they've altered that bill a little bit, and right now it is just state sales tax with a possible implementation of local sales tax over a 4 to 5 year period, and it looks like it'll be like SNAP eligible foods. So there still will be some, but these are all just constant attacks on everybody's revenue. Fire district, school district, everybody. And it's just, again, making sure people in this community have the basic goods, because if they're already going to go to Lee Summit to buy housewares and retail, then they're not going to stop at the coffee shop. They're not going to stop at, some place to eat. They're going to go on to
They're
Lee
gonna Lee
Summit,
Summit,
Lee
eat there,
Springs,
yeah.
and they're going to do those things there. So,
Yeah.
Everybody's right. The retail is the biggest part of that, and it's making the community attractive
Yeah.
to businesses, and we've started that with a lot of the stuff along 7 Highway, and Price Chopper will be a big part of that.
As we build
They'll
the
see
town up.
growth.
Yeah.
They'll see growth, and that's what businesses want. I mean, Robbie's a business guy. He
No,
knows
I mean
that.
trying to motivate people to even come here just for something as simple as tourism. And as he was talking, I'm sitting here thinking like, man, we have a really neat fairgrounds, right? That we get to utilize once a year and a couple other times a year for some of our nonprofits or other people that want to put something on there. But think of partnering with, and so I do a bunch of racetrack stuff as I'm going around the country, and I've seen the same idea where racetracks, when there's no race in town, well, what are you going to do with all those acres that you own? Well, we think of something as simple as a music festival. I sit here and I think of like this Jason Aldean song playing in my head, try that in a small town, right? And so why couldn't we have something small like a music festival here where we're promoting other people within the county to come attend something like that, or just getting them motivated to come here and see some of the new businesses that we've promoted, have a cocktail at Wing Hill, go to Bale and Ash and have a cigar, right? There's a lot of cool things that this town has. It's going to continue to grow, but just having some small things like that would just drive in a different demographic, I guess, of person.
We also have to look at the fact if you bring all these people in, we're going to have more housing, affordable housing.
Not housing. I mean, there'll be hotels and other things around, but who's to say we can't have one of those one day?
I would hope so.
Further up the highway, right?
Yeah,
That's what they look
on
for.
7
But
Highway, yeah.
I mean, people from Pleasant Hill are already going to Lee Summit and Harrisonville now.
Yeah.
What we need people from Lee Summit and Harrisonville wanting to come to Pleasant Hill to spend their money here and buy stuff here. That's what we need, because then that way it's their money that we're putting in our coffers,
Do
and
we
not
get-
and not just the same amount that money that's just getting circulated around the city here.
And do you have the profits or the money that we can promote all that stuff?
I mean, you can promote it. It's always, things have to come in a certain order. Now that the Price Chopper and the pad sites are coming, we're going to be in a better position that it didn't happen on the timeline, but we need to really start looking at the Economic Development Commission.
Yeah,
That's an important one.
yeah, it is.
But you have to have things in the right order to do those. And, so many years we had 7 Highway 1 lane because of what? Resurfacing, sidewalks. Now the Green Bridge is going to be gone for half a year. Those are all things that hinder when people come in and want to look at the community.
All right.
And so I think we are in the right time to start looking at like Economic Development Commission to start working on those things.
And bring small businesses in here too.
Yeah, a lot of it too is local.
Yeah.
But people have to have a good business plan too. We get a lot of people that want to start a business, but you have to understand what you're doing with that too.
And we have to make it easier for them to start businesses too.
Yeah.
Streamlining like some of that permit process, or making it easier, the same as building a house or anything else, right? Like we have to find a way to make ourselves extremely attractable to whatever type of growth is going to come our way, and it's obviously the voters' job to pick the person that they feel like is going to put themselves in that best position.
Yep.
And that's why my family brought us down here. We wanted to live up in a place where we're not scared.
Mm-hmm.
So
Now, this question will be related, and citizens are curious about priorities. The question is, if the revenues fall short of projections, which city services would you consider reducing first? Which would you protect most? And B, we'll start off with you on that one.
well, we have to have the animal control. We have to have the fire department. Is that what you're talking about? The entities? Now, I would never cut the fire department, and Dana doesn't have any help helping her anyway. She runs that whole place by herself. But the other thing is, you just hope that you can do the right thing for everybody. That's all, But I lost my train of thought. Say that question again.
It's, if the revenues do fall short in the city, which city services would you consider reducing first? Which would you protect or hold out on?
Well, like I said, protect the fire department, protect the parks, recreation, and animal control. As far as cutting, all I could say is you maybe cut a few men's jobs out, but most of them are pretty busy all day long too. So I don't want to do that and hurt people's lives. But if you have to do it, you have to do it. And I mean, everybody has to downsize once in a while. So.
Same question to you, Don. If those projections fall short, which services would you consider reducing first, and which would you protect?
So I'm going to start from the end first. The services that I would protect would be public works, because if we're going to grow or be able to get out of this, we're going to need infrastructure. And so we're going to need the Public Works Department to be fully staffed and fully operational in order to be able just to give the residents their basic services. I think as far as cutting anything,
Yeah.
I wouldn't so much want to see stuff cut as I would like to see it redirected. And maybe it's a situation where we partner more with our not-for-profits in town. We rely more on our boards and commissions to do more of the work that that we're paying for now. The Soccer Association has a very, very good program. They're not with They're not with Parks and Rec. They're their own separate entity. Football Association, same way. Having a baseball association would alleviate some of that burden on the city, and so that would be something to consider in order to instead of doing an actual reduction, partnering with other organizations in order to make up that difference.
John, that same question to you. If the revenues do fall short, which city services would you consider reducing first, and which would you try to protect as much as possible?
So first, we're not in the sky is falling kind of mode.
Right.
We have a little bit of time. This year's budget was a little tricky. Next year's budget will be a little trickier. But we'll see that shift from the valuation revenues to capital revenues. And it's wants versus needs. If it's a functional part of city operations, we don't want to cut it. Public Works, we've invested too much money in parks. Law enforcement can't be cut. We have to look at Fire District is its own entity. They're fighting just as much as we are to survive these cuts. And it's really then looking at processes. Do we put all of our park staff focused on pool and park maintenance and maybe contract out more landscaping and cutting grass, and Public Works being able to work with local businesses to contract some things out? And I think that's where we get into that, as I say, survival mode over the next year or two as we make that transition. And it's about not panicking, not just cutting everything and selling everything off, because at the end of the day, when we do that, we're going to be worse off down the road. So it's really about making smart decisions with money now, and what can wait a year and what can't, and how do we protect the infrastructure we have.
Robert, that same question to you.
Yeah, no, I got you. I'd probably piggyback off of what both of these gentlemen said, but I kind of like the partnerships thing a little bit more, in the fact that, you reference like the soccer field, right, and their association doing a good job. And I mean, trust me, I'd be texting Mark like, hey man, like game's starting late. What are we going to do? Yeah. Or you need help mowing the soccer fields. And as I say that, I'm pretty sure I did offer that a couple different times. You need help mowing, plucking dandelions, filling a dirt patch, or things like that. And so to answer the question on what would I cut, none of them. Right? Like I want to find a way to, at least in business, the way that I go about it is I go in and I try to hunt down failed processes, but it's not to eliminate them, it's to make them smarter, right? So we need to continuously find ways to invest in ourselves. If there's somebody that's not figuring out how to get something done, let's teach them how to get it done better. Again, even if that is technology, implementation or anything else, awesome, right? I also believe that in a world full of technology, we double down on things like humanity. Don't be scared to ask somebody for help. I show up to the park, and maybe when I show up to our brand new facility, every time that I take my 20-month-old down there to let her go play, and my wife does that consistently, we take a trash bag with us and we reel off and we grab the trash out of the top of the trash cans. And maybe it's something as simple as partnering with homeowners around each park. Hey, do you want to volunteer some time and help out? So that's probably a good one. It's the same thing with volunteering, for the soccer association or anything else that we have going on in this city. I think when we're questioning ourselves on what we should cut or what we should do away with or any of those things, don't be scared to ask somebody for help, right? When it comes to even like a paid position or somebody being mayor, like our job is to lend a hand, right? Yeah, we're trying to work other jobs as well as we're doing it, but I don't want a dime for being mayor. So if there's whatever it pays, and John, you probably know better than I do, I don't want a dime of it, put it right back into the city budget.
$600 a month.
Don't care. So that's $600 a month that, we could be doing something else with. And again, I don't plan to take a dime of any of it. I plan on turning around and gifting it right back. So if that helps fund something else, awesome.
Well, hell,
Go
you
ahead,
can
B.
give it
No,
to
no,
me.
no,
You can give it to me.
no, go.
Now, I run heavy equipment. So if there's any in the city that needs something done, you rent the equipment, I'll build it for you.
Yeah, I mean, and having, somebody that's a mayor or a council person or anything else, as we sit here and we talk about like lending a hand, like how can you give advice on roads when you've never done flat work or ran a skid
Right.
steer, right? And I've done a lot of those same
I run
things
cranes and bulldozers and earth movers.
building motors, transmissions. I'd call you, B, hey, will you jump on this
Hell
skid
yeah.
steer and help me out?
And
so
also, I run NASCAR too.
part of that is, again, that's what I love about Pleasant Hill.
Yeah.
Is like we're all sitting here talking about it,
Yeah.
and it's still just a community, and I feel like any single one of us could ask each other for help, and we
Yeah.
would, right? We can find ways
Exactly.
to partner with our community. Again, going back to not cutting the revenues, we can go in, and when we want to make that soccer field a little bit better, maybe give that association a little bit more leash to put some signage there where field sponsored by
Is that
such
the
and
one on the
such,
Country Club?
right?
The soccer club.
And so as that field could be maybe sponsored, or that association could be sponsored by somebody, you're recruiting local money to go right back into a sports program. We've seen it on jerseys. Why not take it to scale? I mean, there's a million ideas we could come up with, and this could go for 20 minutes.
And I put up fundraisers before. Drove, come with $10,000 for a leukemia family right out here on 58 Highway. So I know how to put fundraisers together. I can do that.
Very good. So we're going to shift a little bit to economic development and business growth. I'll start with you, John, on this one. How do you view the 2040 comprehensive plan?
So the comprehensive plan, even when you start at the very beginning of that thing, it talks that it's a long-term vision, but it doesn't necessarily preach it or anything. It's a framework. It's a guide work. We can't just. It's not a rule-making thing. A lot of things go into the comprehensive plan. There's a lot of pieces of it. There's a transportation, an infrastructure, a parks component, a trails component. It really is, yes, using that framework to start the discussion for decisions, but a lot of decisions are much too complex just to look at that thing and say, this is our decision. I think that you run into a lot of problems when you just look at it and start cherry picking it. This says this is what we're going to do. One of the things it said as an example is infill, trying to fill up empty spots along 7 Highway. Absolutely, as we can do that, we can. Price Chopper and its pad sites, we're not going to fit in any of that infill. The other is businesses come in, they're going to buy property that they want to build on, and it's trying to make that, does it fit the intent of the comprehensive plan? But I think that a big part of that now, and we just talked about it, is getting into that economic development commission part of it. It was a 0 to 2 years, but we just weren't in the right place as a city to do that. It would have not garnered what we needed. Now we have economic development happening. As it says, you have to have money to make money. And when businesses move in, they want to see that progress. They want to see some newer buildings, and so many business owners along 7 Highway have renovated their properties and made their properties look more to the look of the area. And that's really what it is, and it's just trying to keep in that framework. And as you read through it, it's also a document that references what the trail master plan is for the state and the region, what the local trail plan is, what the historic district and Main Street plans are, 7 highway plans. It takes all those parks and bike trails. So it's not just a singular document.
Robert, same question. How do you view the 2040 comprehensive plan?
It was all about economic growth, but I'll hone in on that comprehensive plan for you. The last time I spoke on this, I think I outlined it as one thing that's, again, we're a small city. We should be able to pivot. And as I say, pivot, the comprehensive plan I've referenced several times that it's not a Bible, right, or anything we have to go by. But I find myself going back and looking at it, and I'm like, it is a really good roadmap. It outlines a lot of things that, as a business, if you want to come in, and that's probably the biggest thing, the city has to be able to go out and say, well, what's Pleasant Hill look like in 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years like to you, Mr. Mayor? Right? Your answer should be, here's exactly what it is. Here's where our zone commercial is going to be, our residential is going to be. Here's where our road access over the next 5, 10, or 20 years is going to be, right? And this is our vision. Every company has a vision and a mission statement, right? And essentially that's what our comprehensive plan is. The only thing it doesn't outline very well is, well, how are we going to financially accomplish that mission, right? And there's Chapter 1100 bonds, there's TIFs, there's other GO bonds. We can find ways to, again, buy more land ourselves, steer in some of those sales tax drivers, right, and get the businesses that we want as we, again, try to reinvest in ourselves and acquire more land. But if that's not the direction, the comprehensive plan is a great sales tool, right? We just have to let somebody know 100% what that vision looks like, and can we tweak things over the next 5, 10, or 15, 20 years to make it look like they want it to look like? Absolutely. Same thing with our tax base or our taxpayers, right? We're consistently, not moving goalposts, I guess, is what John would say earlier, but we're being adaptable, right? Like times are consistently changing, and we need to roll with it, right? And maybe that's why mayor's a 2-year term and not a 4-year term, right? Fresh ideas.
All right, B, same question. How do you view the 2040 comprehensive plan?
I haven't any idea. I have not seen it, so nobody's given me a copy of it. Where do you get one at?
Oh, there's copies of them online.
It's online.
Oh, they're online. Oh, I'll have to go to the library then. So, go ahead.
Don?
So I view the 2040 comprehensive plan as a roadmap. And just like any other map, there's multiple ways to get where you need to go, right? And so there's ideas that are listed out in there. There's an action plan in the back of it that I think it's page 90 that lists out all the different things that could be done to get where we want to go. Second one on that list is the Economic Development Council, right? And so while there's always different ways that you can go to get someplace, there's always different things that you can do on this plan to get where we need to go. But I think the plan is spelled out pretty good as far as even just a tool just to promote ourselves and give people something that, like, hey, this is our vision of Pleasant Hill. These are the areas where we can that we have different things for our trails, our downtown and the like. But it's just a roadmap to get there, but it does spell out if when you say, like, hey, you got to go past Casey's and make a left, it says on there things that we can do, and so the Economic Development Council is something that has to happen.
All right. So I'm going to take this question and start with you, Robert, and it's also on economic development and business growth. It's kind of a two-part question. How does zoning and development affect Pleasant Hill and its identity, and how would you promote economic growth?
Man,
It's the same question, isn't it?
yeah, they just ask it in a different way. It makes it seem a little harder, and you want to answer more intelligently. And
I was gonna
And
say.
yeah, the weather updates. No, I guess when it comes to, I don't know, some things around like zoning, right, was the first part of that question. I touched on it earlier, finding ways to make it easier to do business with the city, right? And I had a gentleman tag me in a Facebook post, talking about developers and then backpedaling a handful of codes to make it easier, more cost efficient for housing developments to go in, for example. There's something in that language where it has to do with like a 30-day time frame. Is that too much? Is that too long? Is that something that our city can accomplish? Hell yeah, I can look at a contract and probably whip through it inside of a day or two. And if I need to send it back for review, like let's find a way again to make it easy to do business with the city of Pleasant Hill, right? Zoning's probably one of the first places that you start when it just, talking about like a community identity or things of that nature was the second piece that you touch on. I wouldn't question the intent of any single person here at this table. I mean, again, I got my 20-month-old. I have two other girls that are in 3rd and 4th grade right now, and I'm 100% invested in this community. I want to find ways to see us succeed, right? Grow, partner, all of these things that we could do. But I think every single person here, regardless of who somebody would vote for, we all have the same intent, right? And that intent is to make sure that we're on a path to success. So.
And to serve.
Go ahead.
And to
Dean.
serve our citizens. That's what I want to do.
And that's on the question. I think the citizens, they're curious about zoning and development. You go residential versus industrial and things. How does that affect? And with all of that, how would you promote economic growth?
How would I? I don't know, unless I go out and try getting investors from banks and stuff and see if I can get businesses in here. I would like to get a dispensary in here. I use it for arthritis, and it hurts me that I have to go clear up to Harrisonville or Lee Summit to take care of that. But yes, I would try to go talk to the businesses at other places and see if they'll come down. It's the only way we can do it.
Yeah, I mean, anything somebody's going to do is like when a business comes in here and they look at us. Yeah. Right, they figure out who they're investing in.
Right,
like how much money do you make, or
right.
What is the population, things of that nature. And
Drive
so we have to find a way to, advertise ourselves.
Yes.
I feel like is kind of probably what you were leaning towards.
Yes,
right, but
I mean, some kind of promotions. We got to get it out there and let them know what kind of a city we are.
Strength of community. Awesome schools, right? But just awesome people in the community, and that's the type of businesses and people that we want to attract.
When there's anything ever happened in this town, we come together like united, and we stand together and we work through it and we get it done.
So one thing I think that got touched on a little bit earlier is making it easier for development to happen, right? There's a lot of developers that are not doing a lot of business with the city because we have made it more difficult for them to build here. The average price of a house, I don't know that if I was a brand new family just starting out, that I would be able to afford to live here. So we need to take a look at those codes and see if there's something we can do to make it a little bit easier and a little bit faster for the process. One thing that we could look at is getting a number of different plans and having them pre-approved. Like, hey, if you want to build any one of these 20 houses, we're going to stamp it right now and it's good to go. And that would be something that I think the city could take a look at and say, hey, we would like to have this type of houses in these types of communities, in our neighborhoods, in our city, and that would be something that the city would still be able to have say into, like, what type of buildings are being put up, but it would also streamline the process for the developers and make it easier for them to put up lower expense housing.
Do you have a preference in which one comes first, whether it's businesses first or housing first?
Well,
obviously, I think we all align on infrastructure needs to be in place. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we're going to have is retail businesses in
Yeah.
here first,
Yes.
because that's what's going to bring in
More people.
and money into
Yeah.
into the just for our budget. Once we have the retail in and we get more people here, then people are going to want to stay. But at this point, I don't know that people coming in can even afford it. It's the housing market here. It's pretty
It's high
expensive.
everywhere.
It's high
It's pretty
everywhere.
expensive.
It is.
And I think that was
People aren't
kind of
buying
the
either.
intent of the bill that was where the question was posed to us, was because of needing lower housing,
And some of those things that were in that bill, I mean, again, it's reeling back some, certain specific building codes or other things where can we do things differently? When we talk about like a green environment and what does that look
Well-
like? And some of those green deals, as Trump likes to talk about, right, have cost us more. But
Right.
we live in houses right now that were built a certain type of way 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or 100 years ago, and they're still standing.
Mine's got to be home about 100.
So we could probably amend a few things.
So John, same question to you, and the question to zoning, how does the zoning and development affect Pleasant Hill? And then, of course, what would you do to promote more economic growth?
So like the good part is that bill that was discussed online the other day, Pleasant Hill we didn't include a lot of that green stuff in our codes. So that won't really be a change, even if it passes. I think that processes do absolutely need to, they need to be easier so that businesses know, or even homeowners know, if I want to build a driveway, redo a driveway, I should be able to go online, I got to do ABC, here's ABC, I can get it done. There's nothing hidden, nothing that comes up. But I think where we have to be cautious is we do have to hold developers to standards of sidewalks have got to be put in, green space has got to be put in, they've got to put in fire hydrants, and they've got to develop infrastructure. You can't let developers come in and be like, well, I'll do this, and then, when somebody else builds, they can add this on, because essentially at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're asking taxpayers to fund things for developers. They're in a business to make money, but I'm sorry, you can't do that on the backs of taxpayers. And so I think that some of that code stuff, even if it means that we don't get a housing development, if their hang up is putting in quality streets, sidewalks, fire hydrants, and building an infrastructure, then I'm okay losing that development, because I'm not going to make the taxpayers pay for that later on. That is what it is. And I think the other part of it is we have to avoid what is happening in Lee Summit, Blue Springs, Raymore. You can't drive through Raymore now without seeing duplexes and high density
Yep.
apartments.
Yep.
And this, Lee Summit's kind of the same way. And this thought process that if I build all these residences and I build all these apartments and all these duplexes, that business is going to follow, I think that's a failed study. There's like one study out there that supports that, and we just can't. We have to protect our neighborhoods, and there's just too many threats to property values right now, and rental houses through corporate and foreign interests are a big part of that problem, and we've just got to protect our neighborhoods, and part of that is codes and making sure that developers do their work for our community.
No, you've hit on that a bunch of times. And so my wife's a real estate agent and have friends that are too. And it sucks watching like an open door, buy a house, turn around and put a renter in there, and just the renter's in and out in a year. It just sits empty, right? And is that a person that we want in our community? Not necessarily the renter, but are they taking care of the property, right? And just making our community, look good, keeping it safe. I like, again, like a lot of the other things that you touched on about making sure, the right developers going to come in and do the right things. Are they going to pay to set up good water infrastructure, right, and pay a connect fee, or all those things that we should require to make sure that, hey, you're somebody we do want to partner with versus somebody that wants us to pay, to help get your development done. And I would never jump on board with saying that I would ever make it that easy to the point where I'm going to spend taxpayers' money to make it easier for a developer to get rich. 100% not. I'll make the permit process easier, a bunch of that other stuff, but set up your own infrastructure, make sure the neighborhood looks good, and make sure that it's attractive and it's not on the backs of the city or our dollars to go in and pay for sidewalks, roads, etc.
All right. John, I'm going to go with you on this one. We're going to go to taxes, revenue. Do you support the use tax? Yes or no? Why or why not?
So I do support use tax. You are paying a tax when you buy things online in Missouri. You're paying use tax already. You're paying the sales tax. This is for buying things out of state online. Yes, it's another 2.75%. Another $2.75 for every $100 you spend that you're paying. But all you got to do is look out your front door, and there are a dozen UPS and Amazon vehicles and FedEx vehicles going up and down our streets. And we hear this all the time. We're already talking right now about how do we fund infrastructure when we have revenue decreases. The estimate for us to have a use tax is another $600,000 in the budget. We wouldn't have any problems with this year's budget with that. Nobody likes tax, plain and simple. I don't like paying tax. Nobody does. Taxes are not the answer to everything. But, this is, again, a lot of wear and tear on our streets and traffic congestion that we all complain about on 7 Highway.
Yeah.
And, again, how much traffic is up and down 7 Highway. They were so busy during the holidays that I had UPS deliveries that were done in U-Haul rental trucks. That's all that is, all just tons more traffic, heavy vehicles on our roads. And it's unpopular, but, I say it, I don't mind it. We all pay it, and that's the thing about being elected is you pay the same taxes and the same rates you set. And is it going to be a burden on some people? Maybe. And I get that. But yeah, I support it.
Don?
I do not support it. And the reason why is because, again, it's just more taxing that we're putting on the people. Our sales tax rate is high enough as it is for the stuff that we're buying in town.
Right.
Let alone when we're buying stuff out of state and having to pay sales, the additional sales tax on it. But it really boils down to this: the use tax has been put on the ballot once before and was stopped. Right? The people did not want it. So we can keep talking about it in April, when the same people are going to make those same decisions, because the fact of the matter is the people that are voting are the same people in April. Now, if we want to see if the city really wants it or not, a November election would be the time to put the use tax on the ballot, because you're going to get everybody voting on a use tax question in November, especially if it's a presidential election.
Right.
But to me, the situation with it is we need to find other ways of raising that money, instead of just keep taxing the people. That's just my position.
Robert, same question to you. Do you support the use tax or not?
Agree with Don's outlook on making sure that we can find another way to recoup said money first. Right? So let's try to explore other options, and if it's not taxing somebody, absolutely. Let's go find a way to make money somewhere else, whether it be with a retail business, right, or other tax revenue that we already have. Is we're looking at, I believe, a tax rate right now of 9.11. I think it is what it is, John. And Lee Summit's like 8.49. So we're already high in certain areas. We've already had voters voted in the last 10 years to increase our sales tax. I think when you were on council at one point by 0.5%. So we already increased sales tax. So there might be some tax basis out there that's not opposed to it. I think it becomes more of a transparency issue which is what we tried to get to when we were putting use tax. When I say we, John and company, on the ballot last time, is making sure that we understand what we're spending our money on. So to answer the question, if it's done right, I absolutely support a use tax. But again, what are we going to use it for? And we have to make sure that when it ends up in some form of ballot language, and it's 100%, like Don, you're right, it's going to be up to the people. And are they probably going to kick it right in the nuts? Sure. Right? But in all reality, if they knew that that money was going to be spent on a community center, right, or it was 100% going to go to a form of infrastructure, whether it be roads and sidewalks, and hey, here's our roadmap of if we get X amount of dollars in revenue, these are the sidewalks that are going to be done first, and here's how we're going to outline that when we tweak our comprehensive plan. So I would gladly take that money if our residents were willing to give it to us and use it in a responsible manner that's clearly outlined and is transparent. Go ahead.
But I would say that therein lies the problem is how is it going to be spent? Because this council here right now might spend it on one thing, and then when the next council comes in, they might say, oh no, we need to spend it on something else. And I don't know that there's any way for us to guarantee, unless it's put on the ballot as that this money is only going to be used for infrastructure. And that would be a completely different conversation, right? Because just putting the money into the general fund where it could be used for anything, that is a completely different conversation than, hey, we can use this extra money is going to be.
I agree with like the ballot language, right, where you could specify the fund that you want to supply with a use tax. So we can get super specific
I
with
just
it.
weren't sure if we could do that, because the way that the state law reads is, even if you put it on the ballot language, a future council could change their mind, even if it's in the ballot language. So I don't know that you ever get around that part, which is
And that's
I
why there's the
question
problem
that.
with the use tax.
Yeah, I question that. But here's the thing: we all talk about local business and supporting business. If I can buy this online and get it by 5 a.m. the next morning for $5 cheaper than buying it here in town, then I would be more inclined, without a use tax, to buy it online and not support a local business.
Yep, 100% agree with you. And then we sit here and we think of like, well, what does that look like
Right.
for the taxpayer in a dollar amount? And I think when looking at the averages, I've researched it a million ways from Sunday, depending on how much you spend, it could be $50 a year, right, on average, or 50 to 100, right, that everybody's pitching in. Well, if the city ends up going broke, and let's say as revenues decline, and we've had these conversations, and we wish we would have had it in place, do we start a Pleasant Hill GoFundMe?
Yeah.
Right? Of everybody pitching in $100, or do we go the volunteer route of me emptying trash cans at the park?
I won't
So.
be able to answer, but
Yeah,
real quick. The thing that I have heard, and it's concerning to me, and we're going to get off topic, but is I have literally heard people in the community say they would rather pay 13% sales tax than pay property tax.
They're not buying
So-
anything here.
I know, but so if all these things happen and we get up to that 13 to 16% sales tax, and we get to that point in time that we decide we need a use tax, good luck tacking on an extra 2.75 when you're already paying 11 to 13%.
And part of this conversation too is probably muting the fact that you had touched on it, I think, in your city address. But the state may go a route where a lot of other cities around us have a use tax that's
Yes.
already in place, and the state just says, hey, as we're flattening revenues for all these cities, and we're eliminating or doing freezes on specific tax revenues, we're just going to go ahead and implement it statewide.
And that may happen. I don't know,
So.
but it may happen.
And B, let's give you a chance to comment on that. Do you support that use tax?
Yes, I do. And anywhere we can get some extra money, and if the people will support it, I think that's a great idea. We'll just get her done.
As long as it's used responsibly.
Yes, use responsibly. But
And
that's-
as we're getting close to wrapping up, we got a few more minutes. This is going to be on vision, leadership, and priorities. And I'll start with you, Don. What do you see as the biggest challenge to the city of Pleasant Hill coming into this next election and term?
Our biggest challenge is financial at this point. As I see it, we cannot maintain the deficit that we're looking at. Right? I mean, we're going to be okay. We have reserves in our fund balance, which we save for the rainy day. That's what we've done. But we can't keep going on that way. So that's why, you know, for me, it's important that we get that economic development council, and it's probably one of the first things that I would try to institute as mayor, because, you know, that was suggested in step 2 of the action plan for the comprehensive plan. And if we would have started that 4 years ago, we would have it already in place. Ideas would already be starting to flow. And to me, maybe we're not in the situation that we're in right now. And so that's where I would be looking. You know, we got to make sure that we don't keep dipping into the fund balances year after year, and that's the way I see we can accomplish that.
B, so what do you think is the biggest challenge to the city of Pleasant Hill as we head into this?
I really don't see a challenge other than the streets and the infrastructure. I think they need to be worked on quite a bit. I mean, there's some of these holes you could think you're driving on the moon. So that's what I want done. I want streets taken care of and the sewer lines taken care of, because we have a lot of flooding. And I also want to address the lighting. How do we lose our lights all the time? Is it the power plant, or is it, where are we getting our lights from? Lee Summit? Or do we have our own power plant? On that Dogwood?
No, we don't get it.
We don't get
but
it.
these are transmission lines and transformers, and that is all
That's all it was.
power company things. So
Okay.
All right. Next question, or same question rather, to you, Robert.
Talking about electrical stuff, and it lives in the back of my mind that I got a 500K generator sitting on a trailer. That's basically would run our town. Probably summarizing, I guess, what Don said. I mean, financial implications of kind of where we're at right now are just 100% where we're at right now. So we have to probably figure that out first. But are we okay? Sure. Like we referenced that, you know, we were smart enough to have a reserve or healthy reserve, fund balance that we could access. Now, can we continue to access in the manner that we've done it this year for the next 2 years? Absolutely not. We're going to be broke, right? And so you probably have to choose a really good business leader that does a lot of really smart, common sense business things, to point us in the right direction. I feel like part of that, or what you would reference when you would ask Don the question, is like, well, what's our vision? And I feel like, just like with any good company, we do have to have a really good mission and vision statement for our city that has thoughtful, respectful growth, implemented somewhere into that vision of what's going to get us beyond where we're at right now.
All right, and to you, John.
I think in the next year it's looking at our budget and seeing where we can be smarter, keeping the growth that we already have going, working off the economic development that is beginning on the north end of town. It really is just keeping those things moving forward and not allowing a bad year or two to grind us to a halt and get us further behind, get us in that place that got us here. And that was not fixing things and not improving parks and not, we have completed a lot of the steps, We've done parts of the comprehensive plan that were big in there, the park system. The state's doing some stuff with the trail system and us working on the trail system and infrastructure. It's real hard to bring people in here to operate a business when, every year we have a water emergency, and we got that money and it was a good start. And the water tower, the pump systems, even our lines now, we're starting relining. That infrastructure's there that we can really start to focus on the economic development and be smart about it and not just kind of, hey, let's just throw this out here and see what happens. We have things that we can now take to businesses and say, look, we have this. It's a healthy community. We have a water system that's improving. We have this. You will have a successful business here.
And as we look at stuff like that and how we're funding, like water through various bonds, we have to take a look at as interest rates will likely go up and down. Interest rates are another big factor in having somebody that's, aware enough to say, hey, one administration may be doing, a little bit better than the prior administration when it comes to a president. Well, if rates decline, we have the option and, via what they have right now in 5 years to go ahead and look at refinancing some of those bond structures, right? And helping us get some of our money back or saving those people that voted us going into debt for good reason, right? But how are we smarter with their money? And so refinancing some of those bond structures, will come up over the course of the next 4 to 6 years.
All right, this is going to be the final question, and we're just going to start right here to my left and go around. Why are you the best candidate to help guide Pleasant Hill's future through this time? Starting with you, John.
That's a really arrogant answer. I don't ever say I'm the best person. I am just a citizen like everybody else. I have things that happen at home, and life happens, and I just tell people that if you see that the city is improving and we're making strides and you like what you see, then I would be more than happy to continue leading this city as mayor. And I don't know that I am the best person for every citizen in this community to be mayor. They may not agree with me, but I've always said I will make the decisions I make, and if I'm mayor for the next 2 years, we will continue to do the things, and if there's a new mayor, this city will continue to grow.
All right, to you, Robert.
If there's a new mayor, I hope they listen to you. I mean, again, you kind of have to know where you came from to get to where you're going. And on that spirit, I always think of asking, and I ask any good CEO this question, through my various business relations, is what makes you a good CEO? And, are you the smartest person? And to John's credit, absolutely. You don't need to be the smartest person. You need to surround yourself with people that are absolutely smarter than what you are, right? Don't be scared to ask for a hand, right? Or ask for help analyzing something. But also, if you're an expert in one field or the other, go ahead and lend your advice, right? Or give your advice out to somebody else that may be seeking it as well. I think the theme of the night, is probably going to be around partnerships, right? How are we going to work together, all of us, right? Mm-hmm. Because whether one of us, stays mayor or one of us becomes mayor, we're all going to have to find a way to partner together.
Right.
And I feel like that's the path that we need to lead ourselves down, and that's, maybe why I'm a good person for the job is I'm going to be open to listen. Right? I'm going to analyze what's said, maybe figure out or make some type of common sense of it, and hopefully put us on the right path. But I'm going to surround myself with people that are smarter than even I. So I just look forward to partnering.
B, same question. Why are you the best candidate to help?
Well, for one, I'm honest. I've been loyal to a lot of people and a lot of friends. And I just want to serve the community that saved me. That's all. That's all I got.
Don, go ahead.
So it is a situation where we have to be able to work together and to facilitate everything, and I think as I look back on the different jobs that I've had, the different boards I've been a part of, and my present occupation now, everything leads up to taking care of what the issue is now, but continuing to look forward to make sure that it's not going to affect our future, or will at least put us in the proper spot that we need to continue in the future. And as for a job, that's what I do. I look out and I have to figure out how are we going to take care of our customers' needs with the resources and the constraints that we have currently. And that's how I see this mayor position as well, is that we have the budget that we have, but how are we going to take care of the basic services that we need, but yet be able to grow in the future? And I believe I bring that to the table.
All right, well, thank you all. Thank you, Mayor John King. Thank you, Robert Gear. Thank you, B. Sherrills Howe.
There you go.
And thank you, Don Donovan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And, we appreciate you guys taking this time to inform the community on your views and let them get to know you a little bit better. And also, I want to thank PH MoMag for making this debate possible. Also thank the citizens of Pleasant Hill, and make sure everybody get out and vote on April the 7th in the election. That is how you make your voice heard. And you know, it's very difficult to hear somebody complain if they don't cast their ballot.
I tell them to be quiet.
Make sure to